The night is dark and full of theories.
What if Tom Riddle had failed? What if on that night in 1943, when 16-year-old Tom Riddle tried to frame Rubeus Hagrid for opening the Chamber of Secrets and killing Myrtle Warren, someone had actually investigated? What if Armando Dippet or the Ministry had looked just a little bit closer at the evidence? What if they'd realized that a half-giant third year couldn't possibly have commanded a basilisk? What if Hagrid had never been expelled? It's one conversation. One decision by a headmaster to actually dig deeper instead of accepting the easy answer. But it changes absolutely everything. Because here's what most people don't realize. Hagrid being expelled isn't just a tragic backstory detail. It's a foundational event that shapes the entire Harry Potter series. Hagrid's expulsion is why he's gamekeeper instead of a professor. It's why he has an inferiority complex about magic. It's why Dumbledore feels so indebted to him that he trusts him with the most important tasks. It's why Hagrid is so desperate to prove himself worthy. Take that away, and you get a completely different Rubeus Hagrid, and a completely different wizarding world. Think about who Hagrid could have been if he'd finished his education. We're talking about a wizard who, at 13 years old, was already showing remarkable talent with magical creatures. A wizard who Dumbledore himself believed was innocent. A wizard who, despite never completing his magical education, managed to perform complex spells with a broken wand hidden in an umbrella. Now imagine that wizard with a complete education. With a real wand, with NEWTs in care of magical creatures, possibly herbology, maybe even defense against the dark arts. Imagine Hagrid as a fully qualified, confident wizard who never had to spend decades proving he deserved to exist in the magical world. That changes everything. It changes how Dumbledore uses him. It changes his role at Hogwarts. It changes his relationship with Harry. It changes major plot points in every single book, because Hagrid's always at the center of things, whether we realize it or not. But here's where it gets really interesting. If Hagrid never got expelled, that means Tom Riddle's frame job failed. And if that failed, it means Dumbledore or someone else figured out what really happened. Which means they might have caught Tom Riddle before he became Lord Voldemort. Or maybe Riddle's just more careful. Maybe he goes deeper underground. Maybe he doesn't open the chamber again until much later. Maybe the timeline shifts entirely. Either way, the butterfly effect is massive. So today, we're walking through an alternate timeline where Rubeus Hagrid stayed at Hogwarts, finished his education, and became the wizard he was always meant to be. We're exploring how every major event in the Harry Potter series shifts when you remove one tragic injustice from the timeline. We're answering the question, what if the boy who was blamed for a crime he didn't commit actually got the justice he deserved? Fair warning, this is going to be a wild ride. Because we're not just changing Hagrid's story, we're potentially preventing Voldemort's rise, we're restructuring Hogwarts staff, we're reimagining the entire magical creature care profession. We're creating a world where Hagrid's talents are celebrated instead of hidden, and we're watching Tom Riddle either get caught much earlier or become an even more dangerous threat because he had to adapt. So grab your pink umbrellas, your rock cakes, and your absolute conviction that Norbert is a lovely dragon who wouldn't hurt anyone. And let's dive into the timeline where Rubeus Hagrid became the wizard he deserved to be. I shouldn't have told you that. I should not have told you that. Actually, Hagrid, in this timeline, you can tell us everything. 'Cause you're not hiding anymore. The night everything changed. June 1943. Let's set the scene properly because context is everything here. It's June 1943. World War II is raging in the Muggle world. In the wizarding world, students at Hogwarts are dealing with their own darkness. Someone has opened the Chamber of Secrets. Students have been attacked, petrified. The school is on the verge of closing. Parents are demanding action. The Ministry is breathing down Headmaster Armando Dippet's neck, and then Myrtle Warren, a Muggle-born student, is killed. Actually killed. Not petrified. Dead. The pressure on Dippet is overwhelming. The Board of Governors is screaming for results. The Ministry is threatening to shut down Hogwarts permanently. Parents are pulling their children out of school. Dippet needs someone to blame. Fast. Enter Tom Riddle. 16 years old. Head boy. Brilliant student. Charming, polite, trusted by everyone. Also secretly a psychopath who opened the Chamber of Secrets using a basilisk, killed Myrtle, and needs someone to take the fall so Hogwarts stays open and he can continue his experiments in dark magic. He chooses Rubeus Hagrid, 13-year-old Rubeus Hagrid, third year, half giant, already marginalized because of his heritage, known for sneaking creatures into the castle. Recently acquired a baby acromantula he named Aragog. It's the perfect frame job. Tom discovers Hagrid with Aragog. Claims the acromantula is the monster from the chamber. Claims Hagrid opened the chamber. Claims Hagrid killed Myrtle. And Dippet, desperate and under immense pressure, believes him. In our timeline, Hagrid is expelled on the spot. His wand is snapped. His education ends. His life is effectively ruined at 13 years old. But what if it went differently? What if Dumbledore, who was Transfiguration professor at the time and already suspicious of Tom Riddle, intervened more forcefully? What if he demanded an actual investigation? The investigation. Dumbledore steps in. Here's what actually happens in canon. Dumbledore convinces Dippet to let Hagrid stay on as gamekeeper. It's a mercy, but it's not justice. Hagrid is still expelled, still has his wand broken, still lives under a cloud of suspicion. But what if Dumbledore pushed harder? Picture this. Tom Riddle brings Hagrid and Aragog before Headmaster Dippet. He's giving his polished, concerned prefect performance. Headmaster, I found him. With the creature. I'm sorry to report this, but I believe Hagrid has been responsible for the attacks. Hagrid's crying, terrified, 13 years old and facing expulsion and possibly Azkaban. I didn't do it. Aragog wouldn't hurt anyone. He's just a baby. Aragog is, in fact, trying to hide in Hagrid's shirt pocket despite being the size of a small dog. Dippet looks at them both. He's exhausted, stressed. He just wants this nightmare to end. Mr. Hagrid, given the evidence. What evidence? Dumbledore has entered the office. Albus, Dippet says wearily, this doesn't concern you. On the contrary, Armando, the education and welfare of our students very much concerns me. And I'd like to understand exactly what evidence we have against young Hagrid here. Tom Riddle's smile doesn't waver, but his eyes narrow slightly. I found him with the creature, Professor. An acromantula. Everyone knows acromantulas are deadly. Deadly when fully grown, certainly. But this one appears to be. Dumbledore examines Aragog, who tries to look menacing but mostly succeeds in looking like a hairy tennis ball with too many legs. Approximately 3 weeks old. Hardly capable of killing a full-grown witch. But Hagrid opened the chamber, did he? Can you explain to me, Tom, how a 13-year-old boy with minimal magical education would have the knowledge to locate and open a chamber that's remained hidden for centuries? A chamber that even our most accomplished professors have failed to find? Tom's jaw tightened slightly. Perhaps he found instructions, or was influenced by dark magic. Dumbledore's eyes bore into Tom's. Perhaps. Or perhaps someone is attempting to frame a convenient scapegoat while the real culprit remains free. The room goes silent. Dippet shifts uncomfortably. Albus, that's a serious accusation. And expelling a 13-year-old boy without proper investigation is a serious injustice. I propose we actually examine the evidence before we destroy this child's future. Tom interjects smoothly. With all due respect, Professor, we need to act quickly. If Hagrid is the culprit and we delay, then we keep him under supervision while we investigate properly. Hagrid, you'll be confined to Gryffindor Tower, except for classes and meals. 2 prefects will escort you at all times. If you're innocent, the investigation will prove it. If you're guilty, you'll be unable to cause more harm. It's a compromise. One that Dippet, desperate for any solution that doesn't involve another rushed decision, accepts. Very well, 1 week. If we haven't found concrete evidence either way, in 1 week, I'll have to take action. Tom Riddle leaves the office, his perfect mask still in place. But he's worried now, because Dumbledore is watching him. And Dumbledore suspects. The investigation unfolds. Week of truth. Over the next week, several things happen. Day 1, Dumbledore examines the crime scene. Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. He finds scales. Massive scales, far too large for an acromantula. He also finds signs of something huge moving through the pipes. Acromantulas don't use pipes. They make webs. Day 2, Dumbledore interviews students. He learns that several witnesses heard a strange voice before attacks. A hissing, whispering voice coming from the walls. Acromantulas don't hiss. They make clicking sounds with their pinchers. Day 3, Dumbledore examines Aragog directly, with Hagrid's worried permission. He determines that Aragog is 3 weeks old, maximum incapable of petrification. Acromantulas kill with venom, not with staring. absolutely terrified of something in the castle. "What's Aragog afraid of?" Dumbledore asks Hagrid. "Dunno, sir. But every time we go near the second floor, he tries to run away. Acts like something's there that wants to eat him." Dumbledore files this information away. Day 4, Dumbledore does something clever. He asks Tom Riddle to help with the investigation. "Given your excellent detective work in finding Hagrid, perhaps you could assist me in examining the chamber's possible locations." Tom can't refuse without looking suspicious, so he helps, all while trying to steer Dumbledore away from the actual chamber entrance. But Dumbledore's watching where Tom doesn't want to go, and he notices Tom carefully avoiding the second-floor girls' bathroom. Day 5, Dumbledore spends the entire day in the library, researching. He reads about basilisks, about parselmouths, about Salazar Slytherin's known prejudices and likely hiding places. Everything points to a snake, a massive snake, controlled by someone who can speak Parseltongue. Day 6, Dumbledore confronts Dippet with his findings. The creature is a basilisk, likely hidden in the plumbing system, which explains how it moves through the castle undetected. It's controlled by a Parselmouth, which means the true heir of Slytherin is behind the attacks. But Hagrid is innocent. His creature is an acromantula, which couldn't possibly cause the symptoms we've seen. Someone framed him, Armando, and we need to find out who. Dippet is troubled. If you're right, we're looking for a Parselmouth at Hogwarts? Yes, someone who has access to the chamber, someone who would benefit from framing Hagrid. Dippet doesn't want to believe it, but he trusts Dumbledore. Day 7. Dumbledore sets a trap. He announces at dinner that Hagrid has been cleared of all charges. The real culprit, he explains, is still unknown, but they've discovered the monster's location in the plumbing system and will be flushing it out the next day. It's a lie, but Tom doesn't know that. That night, Tom Riddle tries to send the basilisk back into the chamber and seal it permanently. But Dumbledore is waiting near the bathroom with several professors. They don't catch Tom controlling the basilisk. He's too clever for that. But they confirm that something large entered the pipes near Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. They confirm the bathroom has Parseltongue writing on the walls, which they missed before because it only appears when spoken to in Parseltongue. They don't have enough to accuse Tom directly, but they have enough to clear Hagrid completely. The verdict: Hagrid stays headmaster. Dippet calls another meeting, this time with Hagrid, Tom, Dumbledore, and several other professors present. After thorough investigation, we've determined that Mr. Hagrid's creature, while ill-advised to keep in the castle, is not responsible for the attacks. Mr. Hagrid is cleared of all charges. Hagrid bursts into tears of relief. However, Dippet continues, the acromantula cannot remain at Hogwarts. It's a dangerous creature and violates numerous school policies. I understand, sir, Hagrid says quietly. I'll release him in the forest. He'll be safe there. That's acceptable. Dippet turns to Tom Riddle. Mr. Riddle, while your intentions were good in bringing this matter to my attention, your accusation was premature. In future, please allow teachers to handle investigations. Tom bows his head, perfectly contrite. Of course, headmaster. I apologize. I was only trying to protect the school. Everyone believes him, except Dumbledore. After the meeting, Dumbledore pulls Hagrid aside. Rubeus, I want you to know I never doubted your innocence. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You have a gift with creatures. I hope this experience doesn't make you abandon that gift. The magical world needs people who understand and respect magical creatures. I won't abandon it, sir. I promise. And he doesn't. Hagrid releases Aragog into the Forbidden Forest, where Aragog will eventually create a colony, just like in canon, but Hagrid doesn't get expelled first. Hagrid returns to classes, and everything changes. Hagrid's education. Years 3, 7. Let's fast forward through Hagrid's remaining years at Hogwarts, because this is where we see what he becomes without the trauma of expulsion. Year 3, remainder. After the chamber incident, Hagrid is more cautious about breaking rules, but not about his love for creatures. He excels in care of magical creatures, taught by Professor Kettleburn at the time. He struggles with more academic subjects like history of magic and astronomy. But most importantly, he's not expelled. He gets to continue learning. He gets to keep his wand. His classmates treat him differently now. Some avoid him. Prejudice against half-giants still exists. But others respect him for surviving the false accusation. He makes a few friends, mostly in Gryffindor, mostly students who care more about character than blood status. Tom Riddle watches him sometimes, calculating, wondering if Hagrid remembers anything that could incriminate him. But Hagrid doesn't. Hagrid just wants to learn about creatures and stay out of trouble. Year 4, Hagrid focuses on his studies. He's not a brilliant student. He's never going to be top of his class in transfiguration or charms. But in care of magical creatures, he's extraordinary. Professor Kettleburn, who in canon eventually retires after losing too many limbs to creature-related accidents, takes Hagrid under his wing as an unofficial apprentice. You've got a gift, Hagrid. Real talent. Don't waste it. Hagrid helps Kettleburn with the class creatures. He learns advanced creature care techniques. He reads every book in the library about magical creatures, and there are a lot of books. Hagrid's reading skills improve significantly. He also grows and grows and grows. By 4th year, Hagrid is nearly 7 feet tall and still growing. His giant heritage is becoming more obvious, which brings more prejudice, but also makes him invaluable for handling larger creatures. Year 5, OWLs. Hagrid takes his OWLs. His results: care of magical creatures, outstanding herbology, exceeds expectations, defense against the dark arts, acceptable charms, acceptable transfiguration, poor, he tried. Potions, poor, he also tried. History of magic, dreadful, he fell asleep during the exam. Astronomy, poor, couldn't fit in the tower properly. It's not a brilliant academic record, but it's enough to continue his education in the subjects he's good at. Year 6, Hagrid takes NEWT-level care of magical creatures and herbology. He drops everything else except defense against the dark arts, which he needs for creature handling. This is when Hagrid truly flourishes. Without the constant weight of guilt and shame, without having to hide his magical abilities, he becomes confident. Not arrogant, Hagrid's too kind for that, but confident in his abilities. He starts assisting Kettleburn officially. Sometimes he teaches parts of classes when Kettleburn is injured, which happens a lot. Students respect him. Some are scared of his size, but most recognize he's gentle despite his appearance. Professor Dumbledore, still Transfiguration Professor, watches Hagrid's development with satisfaction. He always knew Hagrid was innocent. He's glad he fought for him. Year 7, NEWTs and beyond. Hagrid takes his NEWTs, care of magical creatures, outstanding. Herbology exceeds expectations. Defense against the dark arts, acceptable. He graduates. Officially. With a wand, with qualifications, with a future. Professor Kettleburn, who's been planning retirement, those limb losses are adding up, makes a recommendation to Headmaster Dippet. Make Hagrid my apprentice. Train him to take over care of magical creatures eventually. He's the best student I've had in 30 years. Dippet, who feels guilty about nearly expelling Hagrid unjustly, agrees. Rubeus Hagrid, at 18 years old, becomes the official apprentice to the care of magical creatures professor. He stays at Hogwarts, but this time, not as gamekeeper in a hut, as a student-turned-apprentice with a real future. Tom Riddle's response. The Dark Lord adapts. Now we need to address the elephant, or basilisk, in the room. What happens to Tom Riddle? In canon, Tom successfully frames Hagrid. Hogwarts stays open, and Tom continues his dark magic experiments. He graduates, applies for the defense against the dark arts position, is rejected, and eventually becomes Voldemort. But in this timeline, Tom's plan partially failed. Hagrid wasn't expelled. The investigation got too close. Dumbledore suspects him. Tom realizes he needs to be more careful. After the incident, Tom seals the Chamber of Secrets and doesn't open it again. He can't risk another investigation that might point to him. This means the chamber stays closed for the rest of Tom's time at Hogwarts. No more attacks. The school calms down. But Tom doesn't stop his dark magic research. He just becomes more subtle about it. He graduates in 1945 as head boy, brilliant student, beloved by teachers, except Dumbledore, who never quite trusts him. He still creates his first Horcrux, the diary, using Myrtle's death. He still applies for the defense against the dark arts position, is still rejected. But here's what's different. Dumbledore specifically recommends against hiring him. Because Dumbledore suspects Tom was behind the chamber incident, even if he couldn't prove it. Headmaster Dippet, who becomes more reliant on Dumbledore's judgment after nearly expelling an innocent student, listens. Tom is rejected more forcefully, and Dumbledore's suspicion is more open. This makes Tom more cautious, more subtle. He doesn't immediately dive into dark magic publicly. He works in the shadows more carefully. Does this prevent Voldemort's rise? Not necessarily, but it might delay it, or make him more dangerous because he's more careful. We'll explore this more later. For now, let's focus on Hagrid. Hagrid's early career, 1950s. For several years after graduation, Hagrid works as Kettleburn's apprentice. He learns advanced creature care. He travels during summers to study creatures in their natural habitats. He goes to dragon reserves in Romania, where he meets Charlie Weasley's predecessors. He studies hippogriffs in Scotland. He observes centaurs in various forests. He even travels to magical creature sanctuaries in Asia and Africa. Hagrid becomes a genuine expert, not just someone who loves creatures, but someone who understands them academically and practically. In 1956, Professor Kettleburn retires after losing his last remaining natural leg to a chimera. Hagrid, at 29 years old, becomes the official care of magical creatures professor at Hogwarts, Professor Rubeus Hagrid. Let that sink in. In this timeline, Hagrid is a professor from his 20s, not his 60s. He's confident, qualified, and respected. Yes, he still faces prejudice for being part giant. Yes, some parents complain, but he has credentials. He has Dumbledore's support. Dumbledore becomes headmaster in 1956, succeeding Dippet. And most importantly, he has results. His students learn. They pass their OWLs and NEWTs in high numbers. Hagrid teaches at Hogwarts through the 1960s and 70s. He sees students come and go. He teaches James Potter, Lily Evans, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, and Severus Snape. He teaches them about creatures, about respect, about understanding beings that are different from you. And when the First Wizarding War begins in the 1970s, when Voldemort rises to power, Hagrid joins the Order of the Phoenix immediately, because that's who Hagrid is. Loyal, brave, good. But this Hagrid is different from canon Hagrid. This Hagrid is fully trained, confident in his magic, capable of fighting. He's not just the gentle giant who handles creatures. He's a wizard who can hold his own in battle. The First Wizarding War, Hagrid's role. During the First Wizarding War, approximately 970981, Hagrid serves in the Order of the Phoenix alongside Dumbledore, James, Lily, Sirius, Remus, and others. His role is different from what it might have been as Gamekeeper Hagrid. Combat Hagrid can actually fight with magic. He's not going to win dueling championships, but he's competent. He can cast shield charms, stunning spells, and defensive magic. Combined with his massive strength and giant-born resistance to spells, he's formidable. Creature intelligence. Hagrid uses his creature knowledge to help the Order. He negotiates with centaurs. He works with thestrals for transportation. He even attempts diplomacy with giants, though this fails because giants mostly side with Voldemort anyway. Teaching. Hagrid continues teaching through the war, training young wizards who will need to defend themselves. Some of his students join the Order after graduation. Rescue operations. Hagrid's size and strength make him ideal for rescue missions. Breaking prisoners out of temporary holding cells. Carrying injured Order members to safety. He's the muscle when muscle is needed. He's respected. He's not the comic relief or the lovable oaf. He's a genuine member of the Order. And when October 31st, 1981 arrives, when Voldemort attacks the Potters, Hagrid is still the one Dumbledore sends to retrieve baby Harry from the ruins of Godric's Hollow. Because Dumbledore trusts Hagrid completely, not just because Hagrid is loyal, though he is, but because Hagrid is competent. Hagrid brings Harry to the Dursleys, just like in canon. He cries over James and Lily's death. He mourns his former students. And then he returns to Hogwarts to continue teaching, because life goes on. Even after tragedy, the 1980s and 1990s, Professor Hagrid. During the relatively peaceful years between Voldemort's first defeat and his return, Professor Hagrid becomes an institution at Hogwarts. He's been teaching for over 30 years by this point. Multiple generations of students have learned from him. He's beloved by most students, except those from families who are prejudiced against half-giants, but even some of them come around after taking his class. His teaching style is still very Hagrid, enthusiastic, sometimes overly optimistic about dangerous creatures, definitely still has a soft spot for monsters that would terrify normal people. But he's also professional. He has lesson plans. He keeps better safety records than Kettleburn ever did, which isn't hard. Kettleburn lost multiple limbs. He prepares students properly for their OWLs and NEWTs. Some highlights from these years. 1984. Hagrid successfully breeds a new variant of Abroxan horses that are strong enough to pull carriages but gentle enough for students to handle. He publishes a paper on it in Creature Care Quarterly. It's his first academic publication, 1987. Hagrid negotiates a treaty with the Centaurs in the Forbidden Forest, improving relations between Hogwarts and the Centaur community. Dumbledore is impressed. 1990. Hagrid is offered a position at a prestigious creature reserve in Romania but turns it down. Hogwarts is me home. Always has been. He means it. 1991. A new school year begins, and among the first years is a boy named Harry Potter. The boy Hagrid rescued 10 years ago. The boy whose parents Hagrid taught and mourned. And this is where timelines converge and diverge in fascinating ways. Year 1. Harry Potter meets Professor Hagrid. Harry Potter arrives at Hogwarts in September 1991, just like in canon. But his introduction to Hagrid is very different. In canon, Hagrid is the first magical person Harry meets, aside from the brief encounter with Quirrell in the Leaky Cauldron. Hagrid rescues him from the Dursleys, tells him he's a wizard, takes him to Diagon Alley. They bond immediately. But in this timeline, Harry first meets Hagrid on the Hogwarts Express platform, surrounded by other students and parents. Professor McGonagall is overseeing the first years. Now, first years will cross the lake with Professor Hagrid. Everyone else to the carriages. A massive figure approaches, at least 8.5 feet tall, with wild hair and a beard that could house small animals. First years? This way. Follow me. Harry and the other first years follow nervously. Some of the students whisper, "That's Professor Hagrid." My older brother says he's brilliant with creatures. My mother says I shouldn't take his class because he's part giant. While my dad says he's the best care of magical creatures teacher Hogwarts has had in decades. They reach the boats. Hagrid greets each student warmly. When he gets to Harry, he pauses. "Harry Potter?" Yes, sir." Hagrid's eyes are suspiciously shiny. "You look just like your dad. Got your mom's eyes, though. I taught both of them, you know. Best students I ever had." Harry doesn't know what to say. The Dursleys never told him about his parents teaching anyone. In Ye Get 4 to a boat. The journey across the lake is magical. Literally, Harry sits with Ron Weasley, who he met on the train, Hermione Granger, who barged into their compartment looking for Neville's toad, and Neville himself. They arrive at Hogwarts. The castle is magnificent. And Harry's introduction to the magical world includes Professor Hagrid not as a friend and surrogate family member, but as a teacher, an authority figure. It's different, and it changes their dynamic considerably. First year continues, Infinite relationships. Let's examine how major first-year events play out differently. Early interactions. Harry doesn't visit Hagrid's hut regularly like in canon, because Hagrid doesn't live in a hut. He has proper professor's quarters in the castle, probably near the other teachers. This means Harry doesn't have that immediate close relationship with Hagrid. He sees him in Care of Magical Creatures class, which first years take once a week, and Hagrid is friendly and clearly cares about Harry. But there's professional distance. Hagrid still slips Harry information occasionally. Your parents would be proud of ye, Harry, after Harry does well in class. But he's not the confidant that canon Hagrid is. This means Harry, Ron, and Hermione form their tight trio even more strongly, because they're genuinely each other's closest friends, without an adult figure like Hagrid being part of their group. The Forbidden Forest detention. When Harry, Hermione, Neville, and Malfoy get detention for being out after hours, the Norbert incident doesn't happen because Professor Hagrid knows better than to illegally raise a dragon in the castle. They're still sent to the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid, but Professor Hagrid is much more competent about it. He explains the danger clearly. He keeps them safe professionally. He teaches them about the creatures they encounter. When they find the unicorn and the cloaked figure drinking its blood, Hagrid immediately puts himself between the students and danger. He casts a powerful shield charm, which he couldn't do in canon without a proper wand, and drives the figure away with light-based spells. Back to the castle. Now. Don't argue. He reports the incident to Dumbledore immediately. There's a proper investigation. Security is increased. Harry still suspects Snape, wrongly, but Hagrid doesn't accidentally reveal information about the Philosopher's Stone because he's a professional teacher who knows not to gossip with students about security matters. The Philosopher's Stone plot. The trio still investigates the stone mystery, but without Hagrid accidentally giving them clues, they have to work harder to piece things together. They still figure out Fluffy is guarding something. Hard to miss a three-headed dog. They still realize someone's trying to steal whatever it is. When they finally decide to go after the stone themselves, they do it without Hagrid telling them how to get past Fluffy. This means they have to figure out the music solution themselves. Hermione researches Cerberus myths and determines music puts them to sleep. Ron suggests using a magical flute. They improvise. It's messier but works. The rest of the stone plot proceeds similarly to canon. Ron's chess sacrifice, Hermione's potions logic, Harry facing Quirrell Voldemort. But after it's over, when Harry wakes in the hospital wing, Professor Hagrid visits him along with other teachers. "You did well, Harry. Your parents would be proud." Foolish, going after the stone alone, but brave. Very brave. It's warm but professional. Harry appreciates it, but it's not the deep friendship of canon. First year ends. Gryffindor wins. Gryffindor wins the House Cup. Dumbledore still awards last-minute points for Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Neville's bravery. Harry goes back to the Dursleys, disappointed but not devastated. He made good friends. He learned magic. He survived Voldemort again, and he knows Professor Hagrid cares about him, even if they're not as close as they could be. Year 2. The Chamber of Secrets. Hagrid's biggest change. Second year is where things get really interesting, because the Chamber of Secrets plot brings Hagrid's past directly into focus. The attacks begin. Same as canon. Students are petrified. Messages appear. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the heir, beware. Fear spreads through the school. But here's the major difference. Hagrid is not a suspect. In canon, when the chamber opens, people remember that Hagrid was expelled 50 years ago for allegedly opening it. Suspicion falls on him immediately. But in this timeline, Hagrid was cleared of all charges. The investigation in 1943 proved his innocence. Yes, some people still remember the incident, but most accept he was framed. So when students start being petrified, nobody accuses Professor Hagrid. This is huge for Hagrid psychologically. He doesn't live under that cloud of suspicion. He can focus on helping solve the mystery instead of defending himself. Hagrid's role. Professor Hagrid actively helps investigate the attacks. He examines the petrified students, Mrs. Norris, Colin Creevey, etc., with Madame Pomfrey, looking for magical creature signs. Whatever did this isn't a normal creature. The petrification, it's too perfect, too complete. He researches in the library. He consults his old notes from when he was falsely accused. He even speaks to Aragog in the Forbidden Forest. Aragog is now about 50 years old, massive, and has a colony of descendants. Aragog, the chamber's been opened again. Did you ever learn what the real creature was? Aragog shivers, which looks terrifying when a car-sized spider does it. The thing in the castle. The thing that killed the girl. We do not speak of it. Even we fear it. What is it? I never saw it. I only heard its voice through the pipes. Hissing, whispering, death walking on scales. Hagrid reports this to Dumbledore. They narrow down possibilities. Basilisk is the most likely candidate. Harry's Parseltongue, when Harry reveals he can speak Parseltongue, after the dueling club incident with Draco's snake. Professor Hagrid is one of the teachers who doesn't immediately suspect him. Lots of wizards have unusual abilities, Harry. Doesn't make you dark. Means you've got a gift. What matters is how you use it. It's reassuring. And it's based on Hagrid's own experience of being falsely accused, based on circumstantial evidence. Tom Riddle's diary. The diary plot proceeds largely as canon. Ginny Weasley is possessed by Tom Riddle's memory. She opens the chamber. Students are attacked. When Hermione is petrified, she has the word pipes in her hand. Same as canon, she figured out the basilisk travels through plumbing. Harry and Ron investigate. They discover the chamber entrance in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. But here's a change. When they go to tell a teacher, they go to Professor Hagrid instead of McGonagall. Why? Because Harry knows Hagrid was falsely accused of opening the chamber 50 years ago. He trusts Hagrid will take them seriously. They find Hagrid in his office. A proper professor's office, not a hut. Professor, we know where the chamber is. We think Ginny Weasley's been taken there. Hagrid doesn't hesitate. Show me. They rush to the bathroom. Hagrid examines the entrance. The sink with snake carvings. Parseltongue lock, he mutters. Can't open it myself. Harry can yea. Harry speaks in parcel tongue. The entrance opens. Now here's where Professor Hagrid makes a different decision than Gamekeeper Hagrid would. Harry, Ron, go get Professor Dumbledore. Tell him the chamber's open and Ginny's inside. I'm going down. But Professor, no arguing. I'm the adult. I'm trained for this. Go, now. It's the responsible teacher decision. And because Hagrid is a fully trained wizard with a wand, it's actually reasonable for him to go into the chamber alone. Hagrid descends into the Chamber of Secrets. Hagrid in the chamber. The confrontation. Let's pause here because this is a massive change from canon. In canon, Harry goes into the chamber alone. He faces Tom Riddle's memory, fights the basilisk, destroys the diary, saves Ginny. But in this timeline, Professor Hagrid goes into the chamber instead. Picture the scene. Hagrid drops through the entrance into a dark tunnel. He lights his wand, a proper wand, not a broken one hidden in an umbrella. Lumos Maxima. The tunnel is massive, sized for a basilisk. Hagrid sees scales, slime, signs of the massive snake. He proceeds cautiously. His giant heritage makes him resistant to some magic, but he's still vulnerable to physical attacks, and a basilisk's bite is deadly to anyone. He reaches the chamber itself, a vast space with serpent pillars and Slytherin's face carved into the wall. And there on the floor is Ginny Weasley, barely conscious, with Tom Riddle's memory form standing over her. "Ah!" Tom says, turning. "I wasn't expecting you. I was hoping for Harry Potter." But Rubeus Hagrid, how poetic. The boy I framed 50 years ago now trying to save another Weasley. Hagrid recognizes Tom immediately, even as a memory. Tom Riddle. I knew it was Ye back then. Ye killed Myrtle. Ye tried to blame me, and I nearly succeeded. Would have, if Dumbledore hadn't interfered. He always was too clever for his own good. Let the girl go, Tom. This is between you and me. The girl is dying, Hagrid. Her life force is sustaining me. Soon I'll be strong enough to return fully. And then I'll finish what I started 50 years ago. Tom calls the basilisk. The massive snake emerges from Slytherin's mouth statue, 60 feet long. Fangs like swords, eyes that kill. Hagrid immediately closes his eyes. He knows about basilisks. He knows looking at it means death. Close your eyes, don't look at it. Fighting blind is nearly impossible. But Hagrid has advantages. His size, his strength, his years of experience with dangerous creatures. He casts spells without looking. Confringo, blasting curse at where he hears the basilisk moving. Protego, shield charm when he hears the snake lunge. The battle is brutal. Hagrid can't see. The basilisk is massive and deadly. Tom Riddle is laughing, growing more solid as Ginny weakens. Hagrid knows he's losing. He needs help. And then help arrives. Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, bursts into the chamber. He blinds the basilisk, same as canon. The Sorting Hat appears, dropping the sword of Gryffindor. But Hagrid's not a Gryffindor. He's never been sorted into Gryffindor. He was Gryffindor in canon, but let's keep him there in this timeline too, actually. He'd still be Gryffindor even without expulsion. The sword appears for Hagrid because he's showing true Gryffindor courage, and Hagrid, even blind, grabs it. Now Hagrid with a sword is terrifying. He's 8.5 feet tall, massively strong, and knows how to handle weapons. Part of Care of Magical Creatures training involves physical handling of creatures. He swings at where he hears the basilisk. The sword connects, cutting scales. The basilisk shrieks. Tom Riddle realizes this isn't going according to plan. Hagrid keeps fighting. He's bleeding from basilisk fang scratches. Not direct bites or he'd be dead, but he's still moving. Finally, desperately, Hagrid does something crazy. He lets the basilisk strike at him, then grabs it behind the head, like handling a giant snake, which he's trained for, and drives the sword through its brain from underneath. It's brutal. It works. The basilisk dies. Hagrid collapses, poisoned from the scratches. But Fawkes is there. Phoenix tears on the wounds, healing. Tom Riddle screams in frustration. "You should be dead. The poison should have killed you." Hagrid, alive and furious, looks at the diary next to Ginny. He grabs a basilisk fang from the dead snake's mouth and stabs the diary. Tom Riddle screams and dissolves. Ginny wakes up, crying and terrified. Hagrid gathers her up gently. "It's all right. You're safe now. Let's get you back to the castle." They emerge from the chamber to find Harry, Ron, Dumbledore, McGonagall, and several other teachers waiting anxiously. Dumbledore's eyes are twinkling, but also concerned. "Rubeus, well done." "Dumbledore, yay, we're right about Tom Riddle. All those years ago, he was behind it." "I know, old friend. I know." Aftermath of the chamber, year 2 ends. The aftermath of the chamber incident is significant. For Ginny, she's traumatized but alive. Professor Hagrid is gentle with her, helping her recover emotionally. "It weren't your fault, Ginny. Tom Riddle's a master manipulator. Even I believed his lies once." For Harry realizes he missed a major adventure because adults actually handled it. He's frustrated. He wanted to save Ginny himself, but also relieved. And he respects Professor Hagrid even more. For Hagrid, destroying the basilisk and Tom Riddle's diary brings closure to the false accusation from 50 years ago. He finally, truly, puts that trauma to rest. The school celebrates. Hagrid is recognized for his heroism. Some parents who were prejudiced against him reconsider their positions, though some remain bigoted because prejudice is hard to overcome. Lucius Malfoy, who planted the diary on Ginny, is never caught in this timeline, because Hagrid wasn't focusing on tracing the diary's origin. He was focused on saving Ginny, but Dobby is still freed. Harry tricks Lucius with the sock in the diary's remains when returning it. End of year. Exams are cancelled due to the chamber incident. Gryffindor wins the House Cup again. Harry returns to the Dursleys, satisfied that Ginny is safe and grateful that Professor Hagrid was there to save her. Year 3. The Prisoner of Azkaban, Buckbeak's trial. Third year brings Sirius Black, escaped prisoner, supposedly trying to kill Harry. But for our purposes, the most important third-year event is Buckbeak's trial. In canon, Hagrid is teaching care of magical creatures for the first time. He just got the position after Kettleburn retired. He's nervous, inexperienced as a teacher, and makes mistakes. When Buckbeak attacks Draco, Hagrid panics. The trial goes badly, and Buckbeak is sentenced to execution. But in this timeline, Professor Hagrid has been teaching for 37 years. He's experienced. He knows how to handle students and dangerous creatures. The lesson with the hippogriffs goes differently. Professor Hagrid introduces hippogriffs properly. He explains the bowing etiquette clearly. He supervises closely. When Draco Malfoy approaches Buckbeak after Harry's successful interaction, Hagrid is right there. Remember, bow first. Wait for him to bow back. Respect is everything with hippogriffs. Draco, arrogant as ever, does a perfunctory bow. Buckbeak doesn't bow back. Draco steps forward anyway. This is ridiculous. It's just a... Hagrid pulls Draco back, just as Buckbeak's talons swipe. Draco gets a scratch on his arm, minor, barely bleeding, but he's mostly just scared. "Mr. Malfoy, what did I just say? You don't approach unless the hippogriff bows back. That's basic respect." Draco whines about his injury. It's barely anything. He threatens to tell his father. "You do that, and I'll tell him you ignored direct safety instructions from a professor. Let's see who gets in more trouble." Draco's sent to the hospital wing. Madame Pomfrey heals the scratch in about 30 seconds. Lucius Malfoy still complains to the school board. "That beast attacked my son." But Professor Hagrid has 37 years of teaching records, showing exemplary safety practices. He has testimonials from hundreds of former students. He has proper lesson plans and safety protocols. The school board investigates. They find Professor Hagrid gave clear, proper instructions. Draco Malfoy ignored those instructions. The injury was minor and immediately treated. Buckbeak was defending himself according to hippogriff instinct. The complaint is dismissed. Buckbeak is not sentenced to execution. He stays with Hagrid. Lucius Malfoy is furious but can't do anything. Professor Hagrid is too well established and too well protected by his credentials and Dumbledore's support. This is a major change from canon. Buckbeak lives. Harry and Hermione don't need to rescue him. The time turner is still used. Hermione's still taking extra classes, but not for a dramatic rescue mission. The rest of third year proceeds mostly as canon. Sirius is revealed to be innocent. Peter Pettigrew escapes. Sirius goes into hiding. Remus Lupin resigns. The werewolf revelation still happens, but Professor Hagrid remains, stable and secure in his position. Year 4. The Triwizard Tournament, Hagrid's secret. Fourth year is important for Hagrid because of two things: the Triwizard Tournament and Madame Maxime. The tournament, when the foreign schools arrive, Professor Hagrid is part of the welcoming committee. He helps handle the Beauxbatons carriages. pulled by Abraxan horses, which Hagrid knows extensively. He meets Olympe Maxime, headmistress of Beauxbatons, who is also part giant. In canon, Hagrid and Maxime bond over their shared heritage, but Hagrid is insecure about it, lying about his giant mother at first. In this timeline, Professor Hagrid is more confident. He's spent decades being a respected professor, despite prejudice. He's made peace with his heritage. When he meets Madame Maxime, he's honest from the start. I'm half giant myself. Me mother was a giantess. Don't meet many part giants in the wizarding world. Maxime, who's been hiding her heritage, she claims to have big bones, is surprised by Hagrid's openness. They bond over the tournament, over creatures, over shared experiences. It's a genuine connection. The dragon task. When the first task involves dragons, Professor Hagrid is consulted as the resident creature expert. He's thrilled. Dragons. Magnificent creatures. I've been studying them for years. He helps prepare the dragons, with Charlie Weasley and other handlers. He ensures the task is dangerous but not unnecessarily fatal. He also gives Harry a hint about the dragons, because Hagrid can't help himself when it comes to Harry. You're good at flying, Harry. Remember that. The task proceeds as canon. Harry succeeds. The tournament continues. Rita Skeeter. This is where things get interesting. Rita Skeeter, looking for scandal, tries to write a hit piece on Professor Hagrid, revealing his giant heritage and painting him as dangerous. Rubeus Hagrid, half-giant professor at Hogwarts, should he be trusted around children? But it doesn't work as well as in canon. Why? Because Professor Hagrid has decades of exemplary teaching records. He has hundreds of successful former students. He has academic publications. He has credentials. Parents who might be swayed by prejudice are outnumbered by parents who trust his record. Some parents do pull their children from care of magical creatures. Some students treat Hagrid differently. But Hagrid, secure in his position and his accomplishments, handles it with dignity. I am part giant. Always have been. If you don't want to take me class because of it, that's your choice. But know you're missing out on learning about some of the most fascinating creatures in the wizarding world. He doesn't hide. He doesn't cry. Well, maybe a little, in private, because rejection still hurts. But he stands firm. Dumbledore supports him publicly. Professor Hagrid is one of the finest teachers Hogwarts has ever had. His heritage is irrelevant to his qualifications. The controversy blows over faster than in canon because Hagrid's position is more secure. End of year. The tournament ends tragically with Cedric Diggory's death. Same as canon, some things don't change. Voldemort returns. The wizarding world enters a new war. And Professor Hagrid once again joins the Order of the Phoenix to fight. Year 5. The Order of the Phoenix. Hagrid's mission. 5th year is dominated by Umbridge, the Ministry's denial of Voldemort's return, and the formation of Dumbledore's army. Umbridge's interference. Dolores Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary to the Minister and Hogwarts High Inquisitor, targets Professor Hagrid immediately. Why? Because he's part giant, because he's loyal to Dumbledore, and because she's a bigot. She observes his classes, looking for any excuse to fire him. She writes scathing inspection reports, claiming his teaching is inadequate. But here's the difference from canon. Professor Hagrid's classes are actually well taught. He has lesson plans. His students pass their OWLs. He follows safety protocols. Umbridge tries to find fault but struggles because Hagrid is genuinely competent. She resorts to bureaucratic harassment, demanding excessive paperwork, requiring approval for every lesson plan, restricting which creatures he can teach about. Hagrid endures it because he's experienced enough to know this is temporary. She won't last. They never do. The giant mission, during the Christmas holidays, Dumbledore sends Hagrid and Madame Maxime on a diplomatic mission to the Giants. In canon, this happens too, but with gamekeeper Hagrid, who's less confident. In this timeline, Professor Hagrid is a fully trained wizard and experienced diplomat. Remember his successful centaur negotiations in the 80s. The mission is still difficult. Giants are violent, distrustful, and many side with Voldemort. But Hagrid and Maxime make progress with some tribes. They return to Hogwarts beaten up but successful, relatively speaking. Some giants agree to stay neutral rather than joining Voldemort. It's not a complete victory, but it's better than nothing. Hagrid and Harry. Throughout 5th year, Harry is angry, traumatized from Cedric's death, and frustrated with being kept in the dark. Professor Hagrid provides support. but it's complicated by their teacher-student relationship. Hagrid can't tell Harry everything, like in canon, which frustrates Harry. They have an argument at one point. "Why won't anyone tell me what's going on? Harry, you know I can't. Everyone treats me like a child, but I'm the one Voldemort wants. I'm the one who watched Cedric die. I know. Don't you think I know? I taught Cedric for years. I watched him grow up, and I can't tell you everything because Dumbledore says, well, maybe Dumbledore's wrong. It's painful. They reconcile eventually, but it shows that Harry's relationship with Professor Hagrid has different boundaries than his relationship with Gamekeeper Hagrid. End of year. The Department of Mysteries battle happens, same as canon. Sirius dies. The Ministry finally admits Voldemort is back. War is coming. Everyone knows it, and Hagrid, along with every other Order member, prepares for the fight. Year 6, the Half-Blood Prince, standing firm. 6th year is dark. The war is escalating. Death Eaters are attacking openly. The wizarding world is in crisis. Security at Hogwarts. Professor Hagrid becomes part of the enhanced security at Hogwarts. His experience with defensive magic, remember he's fully trained in this timeline, makes him valuable for castle defense. He works with other professors to establish protective protocols. He uses creatures for security, the Thestrals for patrol, protective charms around the Forbidden Forest, communication networks with the Centaurs, the Horcrux hunt. Dumbledore doesn't take Harry on missions to collect memories in this timeline. Actually, he probably still does, because those are important. Let me reconsider. Yes, Dumbledore still takes Harry on the Horcrux investigation. Professor Hagrid isn't directly involved in these missions, but he provides support where he can. When Dumbledore is injured by the cursed ring, Professor Hagrid is one of the people who helps care for him. Albus, you need to be more careful, my dear Rubeus. I'm always careful. I'm just not always successful. The Astronomy Tower. The night Death Eaters attack Hogwarts and Dumbledore dies. Professor Hagrid is fighting Death Eaters in the grounds. He's a formidable opponent. His giant heritage gives him resistance to many spells. His size and strength make him dangerous in combat. His actual magical training means he can hold his own. He doesn't know Dumbledore is dying until it's too late. When he sees Dumbledore's body fall, he roars in grief and rage. The Death Eaters flee, the battle ends, and Hagrid, along with everyone else who loved Dumbledore, mourns. Dumbledore's funeral. At Dumbledore's funeral, Professor Hagrid is asked to speak. He talks about how Dumbledore gave him a second chance when he was falsely accused, how Dumbledore believed in him when no one else did, how Dumbledore changed his life. He saw the best in everyone, even when the world saw the worst. He was the greatest wizard I ever knew, and the kindest. Hagrid breaks down crying. Everyone understands. After the funeral, when Harry tells Hagrid he's not returning to Hogwarts for 7th year, Hagrid is torn. Harry, you need your education. I need to finish what Dumbledore started. The Horcruxes. You know about them, right? Hagrid does. Dumbledore trusted him enough to explain. I know. But Harry, I have to do this, Hagrid. You understand, don't you? Hagrid does. Because Hagrid would do the same thing in Harry's position. Be careful. Promise me, Yale, be careful. DHS. I promise. It's a lie, but a kind one. Year 7, the Deathly Hallows. The final battle. 7th year is chaos. The Ministry falls to Death Eaters. Muggle-borns are persecuted. Hogwarts is controlled by Snape and the Carrows. Hogwarts under Death Eater control. Professor Hagrid stays at Hogwarts. He has to. If he leaves, he'd be replaced by someone who would harm students. He endures the Carrows' cruelty. He protects students where he can. When the Carrows punish students with Cruciatus Curse, Hagrid reports them, though nothing happens. When students are hurt, he helps them recover. He's part of the quiet resistance alongside McGonagall, Flitwick, Sprout, and others. They protect students. They undermine the Carrows' authority subtly. They maintain hope. Neville Longbottom becomes a leader of student resistance, and Professor Hagrid supports him covertly. Keep fighting, Neville. You're braver than you know. The Battle of Hogwarts, when Harry returns to Hogwarts to find the Diadem Horcrux, when Voldemort's forces attack, Professor Hagrid fights. He's now 64 years old, but he's still massive, still strong, still trained. He battles Death Eaters and giants, his distant relatives, horrifically. He protects students. He evacuates younger children. At one point, he faces his half-brother Grop, who he met during the giant mission and has been living in the forest. Grop is confused, not sure which side to fight on. "Grop, it's me, Hagrid. Your brother. We don't fight for Voldemort, we fight for what's right." Grop, simple-minded but good-hearted, joins Hogwarts' side. He fights other giants, protecting the castle, Hagrid's darkest moment. When Voldemort uses the Imperious Curse to force Hagrid to carry Harry's dead body from the forest, it's just as heartbreaking as in canon. No, not Harry. Not Harry! Hagrid is forced to carry the boy he rescued as a baby, the son of his former students, the child he's watched grow up. It's the worst moment of Hagrid's life. But then Harry reveals he's alive. The final battle begins, and Hagrid fights harder than ever. Victory. When Voldemort is finally defeated, when the battle is won, Hagrid collapses in exhaustion and relief. He's injured but alive. He's lost friends but gained victory. And when he sees Harry alive, truly alive, he crushes Harry in a hug that nearly breaks ribs. "Yeah, I did it. Yeah, actually did it. We all did it, Hagrid. Together. It's true, the war was won by everyone who fought. Everyone who resisted. Everyone who chose love over fear. Including Professor Rubeus Hagrid, who never gave up." EPI log, 19 years later. Legacy Platform 9 3/4. September 1st, 2017. Professor Rubeus Hagrid, now 83 years old but still massive and still teaching, is at the platform helping oversee the Hogwarts Express departure. He spots Harry, Ginny, and their children. "Harry, good to see you." "Hagrid, still teaching, I see." "Course, couldn't imagine retiring. The creatures need me. The students need me." Harry's children, James, Albus, Lily, stare up at Hagrid in awe. "Is that really Professor Hagrid?" Albus whispers. "The Professor Hagrid who fought in the Battle of Hogwarts?" James asks. "The one who killed a basilisk?" Lily adds. Harry smiles. "That's him. The bravest man I know." "Well, one of them." Hagrid tears up. He's still emotional after all these years. "Don't make me cry in front of the children, Harry." They board the train. Hagrid waves goodbye. As the train pulls away, Hermione, now Minister for Magic, and Ron join Harry on the platform. "Think Hagrid will ever retire?" Ron asks. "Not a chance," Hermione says. "He'll teach until he physically can't anymore." "Good," Harry says. "Hogwarts needs him. The students need him. They need to learn that anyone can be a hero, regardless of where they come from or what they look like." "That's what Hagrid taught us," Ron agrees. "Among many other things," Hermione adds. "Like never to insult a hippogriff, and that all creatures deserve respect, and that loyalty matters more than blood status." They watch the train disappear into the distance. And somewhere on that train, a new generation of students is about to meet Professor Hagrid and learn the same lessons. About creatures, about respect, about courage, and about second chances. Because Rubeus Hagrid got a second chance when Dumbledore fought for him in 1943. And that second chance changed everything. Final thoughts. So what if Hagrid never got expelled? Everything changes. And nothing changes. Because Hagrid's core qualities, his loyalty, his love of creatures, his gentle nature despite his size, those remain the same regardless of education. But the confidence, the professional respect, the ability to defend himself properly, those only come when Hagrid is allowed to complete his education and become who he was always meant to be. In canon, Hagrid is the lovable gamekeeper with a broken wand and an inferiority complex. He's comic relief sometimes. He's the gentle giant who needs protecting. But in this timeline, Hagrid is Professor Rubeus Hagrid. Respected educator, creature expert, Order of the Phoenix member, someone who fights basilisks and Death Eaters and wins. He's still emotional, still loves dangerous creatures too much, still makes rock cakes that could break teeth. But he's also confident, qualified, respected. And maybe that's the person Hagrid always should have been, if Tom Riddle hadn't framed him, and if Dumbledore hadn't fought hard enough to clear his name. This timeline shows us that one act of justice, one headmaster choosing to investigate rather than accept easy answers, can change an entire life. Hagrid deserved better than expulsion. Hagrid deserved the chance to finish his education, to become a qualified wizard, to be respected for his talents. And in this timeline, he got that chance. The wizarding world is better for it. Hogwarts is better for it. And Harry Potter grew up knowing that Professor Hagrid was someone who proved that your past doesn't define you. Your choices do. Hagrid chose to be kind, to be loyal, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And that's heroic, regardless of house colors, education level, or wand status. But in this timeline, Hagrid's heroism gets the recognition it always deserved. Professor Rubeus Hagrid, the wizard who never gave up on creatures or people. The hero who got his second chance and used it to change the world. Thanks for watching this deep dive into what could have been. If you enjoyed exploring how one act of justice could change everything, hit that like button and subscribe for more Harry Potter what-ifs. Drop a comment below. What other characters deserved better outcomes? What if Snape had been believed about Sirius? What if Lupin hadn't resigned? What if Moody hadn't been captured by Barty Crouch Jr.? There are so many possibilities. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves a second chance, and sometimes those second chances change the world. Mischief managed.